Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. You guys, I am so excited for tonight's special guest speaker. I know you guys have heard, Zach and I both talk a lot about Mike and Brandy. We just have gotten to know them so well ever since Costa Rica, and then just a lot of get-togethers down here in Florida. And we're just so thankful to know them and just so thankful to have, just their insight and their wisdom, shared with us, just all their experience in the industry. And so I'm super excited to have, Mike share tonight. He just absolutely is just such a wealth of information. But just beyond that, just like his experience and his heart for people, I just feel like every time I hear him speak, I learn so much from him. And I'm just excited for you guys to hear from him about, just why right now we have so much opportunity on our hands and just hear some of his stories. So Mike, if you want to go ahead and get started and introduce yourself and tell a little bit of your story, are you able to mute yourself? I'm trying to find you. Oh,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. Hey, well, first of all, I really appreciate you having me on the call tonight, Brittany. And, we've learned a ton from, obviously you and Zach and just the whole family here. So we're excited to be a part, no doubt. Real quick though, my background, well, actually I got to tell you a funny story. I told Brandy today, I'm struggling with this quarantine because I usually go to the barber like every 10 days and now all my gray hairs are coming out. So I can't hide it anymore, right? When it comes to age. But it's a lot of fun because I think back and I've been in this industry now for, this year is 25 years. So a quarter of a century. I know it sounds like a long time. Probably the oldest person on this call, and I love it. But, I started when I was 21, and I started in this industry not to get involved with this industry. And I share that because I barely graduated high school, just so you know. I went to college for a week, and I dropped out. That was not exciting for my mom and dad, but I went into the Marine Corps. That was kind of where I made a move. I thought I had to go do something, went to serve my country. I came back from a deployment, and my brother, Paul, had signed me up into a network marketing company without my permission. Apparently, he had access to my social security number and everything, but he's my big brother, so I was like, cool. But I came back from this deployment, and he said, hey, bro, we're going to go make some money. So the reason I share that with you is that, this is a business of recruiting. And we have a lot of people in our family network, our friends network, and I'm not saying go sign up your friends and family without their permission. That's not what I'm saying. But I look back and I thank God every day that my brother did that because he brought me into this business. So that's probably note number one for everybody tonight. Not only don't ever forget your story, but don't forget the power of introducing just anyone into this industry because, my brother, unfortunately, is no longer with us. He passed away 7 years ago. However, he left a multiple six-figure residual income for his widow, Karen, and the 3 children. So, the power of residual income, and that's a great story I love to share, very proud of it. And I tell you that as he introduced me to the business, one of the things that I learned quickly and what I fell in love with this industry over 20 years ago, and that was personal development. Now, at that time, I didn't realize the power of Jim Rohn. I didn't realize the power of a Les Brown or at that time, Zig Ziglar. Those were probably our top 3 at that time. And there were others. There's amazing speakers and trainers out there, but that was the time in my life where somebody finally told me to write my goals down. Somebody finally told me that, if you want things to change in your life, you have to change. If you want things to get better in your life, you have to get better. And it sounds elementary, and a lot of our parents will tell us that, or even good friends tell us that. And at some point, you stop hearing the people that truly care about you when they tell you the things that you need to hear. And so one of the things I learned early on, one of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn is that, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so in my early life, when I look at my early 20s, and it took me a couple of years to get into 6 figures, but money was the side effect. My greatest asset when I look at my first business, and for many of you, this might be your first company, is that what I learned as a person, the personal growth, the relationships that were developed in my life at that time. I was able to travel the world, for many, many years, even before I joined ItWorks. All of those were the benefits of this business. The money is always there, okay? But it's a side effect of building this business. So number one, my brother kind of forced me into the business, which I thank God for every day. But never forget the power of all of you on this call, that you are a change maker. That's probably the best way to put it. We're all change makers. So don't ever be selfish and hold back introducing somebody, to this business, no matter how you do it. I always tell people you can't really screw it up. There's always a good video. There's always a good Zoom with Brittany or some leader on your team. Your job is to navigate people just to take a look at what we do. Your job is to give them an opportunity to have a change in their life. So I look back and that part of my story was very important. And the second part of it leading into personal growth, because I'm like many of you, I've had many, life experiences, and we all go through ups and downs. And, you have loss in life, you have financial troubles in life. I wear a divorce badge. Brandy and I are a blended family. We both have gone through divorce, and that can be dramatic and traumatic and, financially devastating. But every time you get into a pit in life, okay, personal growth is what gets you out. And so I'm a big advocate of teaching people, in this business, if you can show somebody, and again, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And keep in mind, sometimes you're the teacher. You're that change maker in someone's life. They needed you to come into their life, and the growth that you allowed them to have here is what changes their life. So I went through this in my early 20s, Brittany. It was amazing. I carried that through into my 30s. And over the years, the other part of this, my story in the business we're in, is relationships. So one of my very first Jim Rohn events, which was back in 2003, that's where I met Mike Patillo. So when you look at my story, I met Mike and Tiffany in 2003. We were good friends, always cheered each other on. I spent 2 years in Africa training and development for an organization in network marketing in probably 5 different countries. And I came back from that experience and I met Mark Pentecost, like a Forrest Gump moment at an event. So I met Mark in 2006 and I actually went up to the corporate offices in 2007. I met Pam, met Mark. It was pretty cool. It was a good experience. I remember walking away from that and I said, you know what, this is a really cute company. It was the only way I could describe it, because it was, wraps, and it was primarily women. At that time, Pam was kind of like the Cammy. She was the one out in the field. This was like prior to Cammy really, launching her business. So, but I also remember, what a humble, awesome man Mark was. And so that stuck with me, and I was good friends with him and I cheered him on. I remember when Mike Patillo came to the company 10 years ago, and I thought, wow, and in fact, I made fun of him a little bit because we were good friends. I said, dude, did you just go to that wrap company? Right. And, I watched in over the last 10 years, let me tell you what I saw from a distance. I saw an amazing company come together, very organic. I almost call it like a homegrown, a company that just builds strong and steady and organic. This is how you build what I call like an aircraft carrier. Aircraft carriers are designed for generation. They're designed to weather all the storms, fight wars, and it's not a race car engine. There's a lot of companies out there today. They look good and smell good, but they're like a race car engine. They burn out in 9 months. They burn out in 2 years, 3 years. So I noticed this along the way, and I thought, wow, these guys are really doing some things right. But again, it was all women in wraps. So for me, my business hat wasn't really turned on. But I'll never forget when Brandy and I came down to Florida a few years ago. Mike and I were just exchanging information as friends would, and he told me a little bit about the keto coffee, and that perked me up a little bit. And we had dinner. I didn't exactly tell Brandy the truth of that trip. I told her we were going to Florida to have some fun and get a weekend away. But, I kind of snuck in this dinner with Mike and Tiffany, and I kept telling her, I said, man, you got to meet Mike and Tiffany. So we had dinner, and Mike started to tell me a little bit more about the company in the last few years. Okay. And so this was an exciting part of my story, because about 1 year before I had that dinner with Mike, I was literally praying for my next company. I was looking for the company I thought I could plant my flagpole in. Now, remember where I came from. I mentored with Jim Rohn for 3 years. Now, Jim was a big part of Herbalife, and I got all the history and all the stories from there. There's a company that in their first 20 years got to, less than 30 countries. They got to about $1 billion in sales. In the second 20 of those years, they went to $4 to $5 billion a year. And, I've told you this story before, Brittany, but, they created more millionaires in their second 20 years than in the first 20. And you should let that sink in tonight, because that's what's happening here. So I'm having dinner with Mike. I'm having a little bit of flashbacks of my Jim Rohn days. And I'm thinking, wow, this might be the next, in my mind, Herbalife, a company that's going to go from $1 billion to multiple billion. You know, this is now generational income. This isn't about, you know, just going out and making some money, you know, and doing like what Brittany, you guys have done. And I'm sure you're amazing leaders on here tonight. For all of you, it's about your leaders' leaders. That's how you build a long-term residual income. See, we're all fire starters. You know, that's what we do. You know, we go out, you got to build the foundation. The streets are going to be named after some of you because this time in this company right now is the very beginning. You see, when I looked at it, again, the company, somebody would say to me, well, Mike, they've got all this going on. They've already done all this. But 95% of that business was in North America. So I'll go back to that analogy again. What hit me like a ton of bricks is, you know what, we're not even in 30 countries yet. In the second 20 years of that other company's story, they went to over 90 countries. So I'm going to tell you now just to put your seatbelt on, because what's happening here is next to just beautiful. You've got a company that's already almost 20 years debt-free, billion-dollar company. And part of the security that we all have, and I saw this years ago before I even joined, is that you have Mark and Cindy Pentecost, who are God-fearing leaders. They are caretakers of money, and that's very important. If you look at any long-term billion-dollar company that kids inherit, it's because they know how to take care of the money. And you have to have a healthy company. You got to cheer for the company to be healthy, because that's what carries it for the generations. And so Mark and Cindy already had that built in. They didn't have to try. So I looked at that as one key factor and thought, wow, in 10 years from now, we might be in 75 countries and doing $3 to $4 billion a year. That's what I joined. You know, it has a lot to do with leadership. You know, I'm from Ohio. Brandy and I both have lived in Ohio for a long time. So I'm sure many of you have heard of LeBron James. Lived right down the street from us, and, you know, an awesome athlete and philanthropist. But, you know, here's the thing with LeBron. And if you lived in Cleveland, when he left the Cavs for Miami, if you remember that, because it was all over the news, right? The big decision. But it's interesting because people that knew him, you know, we knew one thing. He wasn't leaving Cleveland for Miami, okay? He was leaving Dan Gilbert for Pat Riley. And there's a big difference. When you think about what's happening here, you've got your Pat Riley with Mark Pentecost. So no matter where you've been, no matter what business you've ran before, okay, if you want to go out and win the championship, you got to join a leadership team that can take you to the championship level. And so when I had that dinner with Mike, these are little things that were light bulbs going on in my mind. Brittany, I was thinking, boom, because I don't want to be in a situation, I don't want to join a company where I have to maybe help the owner out. I'm not going to grow in that environment. You know, I want to be involved with the company where I'm chasing you, Brittany. I'm chasing Joel Don. You know, I'm chasing Cammie. I'm chasing Pam. I'm chasing Mike. This is the environment where you're going to get it all. You know, you're going to get that personal growth, and you're going to get that, what I call timing and positioning. So the reason I joined is because, yes, I was looking for a business. I did have a good friend here, Mike, you know, and Mike really didn't do much, you know, and again, this is part of the story. He didn't do much. He just told me what was happening in the company. And one thing I've been using all this year so far is, you know, launching into 2020, you know, and a few things I'll talk about there as part of the story for me is when I looked at this transition this time, and I'll never forget when Mark said that on the stage at conference where, you know, this is the beginning of the biggest run of the company's history. And that's not motivation. You know, it's not said to motivate you because you're already motivated. That's why you're here. I mean, that's a commitment, and that's really the sign of what's happening here. That's the green light. That's to give you the heads up that this is the beginning of the next. When you look at those growth charts that go like this, and they just start going like this. You see, this doesn't work. When you see a company and you hear about it in the industry, or you hear, oh my gosh, they're going like this and they're doing all this, and I'm telling you, that's the race car engine. That's not going to go like that forever. What goes forever is slow and steady and strong, and a model that can sustain itself. So I looked at that and I thought, you know what? this is where we are. This is where I'm getting involved because I want to reap all the benefits of what's going to happen over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so when you look at timing and positioning, a lot of people get it wrong. They think they got to be with a company that's at the very beginning. Oh, I got to be 001. I've seen that pitch all day long. I've traveled the world a few times too, and I've seen it not work. You don't want to be 001. You don't want to be, if you look at the first 5 years of this company's life, you don't want to do what was done there. Be thankful that you joined now where you are. That's what I was very thankful and grateful. And I say that publicly all the time because those 20 years already put in, set the stage for people like us to go to the next level in our life. And it's going to be a lot easier. And I'll tell you this, my first company experience, we started, that company was at 10 million in sales. And in 3 years, we went to 490 million. I made a lot of money. But I'll tell you, those 3 years, I can't even explain that kind of momentum. And that's a good scale to be on. And when you look at what's happening, even the last call that Mark had just last week or Sunday, they mentioned the growth. I mean, I think we're all experiencing this customer promotion. How brilliant was that? Everybody's loving that promotion. But you're talking in the time of crisis around the world, when a lot of companies right now, they're trying to figure out if they can manufacture their product properly because they're not funded well. They're also trying to figure out if they can pay out all the commissions. This is real. And when you look at It Works, they said, you know what, this is a crisis. What can we do to help everybody? We're giving away cash. We got new promotions. And again, it's that timing and positioning. Nothing can stop this company's time. Nothing. And we're going to have more viruses. You know, in fact, I traveled through a lot of viruses in the last 20 plus years. You know, this is not the first, this is not the last, but it is a wake-up call. I think it's really important to understand that if there's people that you've thought about prospecting or talking to, there has never been a better time to talk to those people. The timing and positioning of people's mindset right now with this global crisis, you have a lot of people that didn't realize how unsecure their life is right now. They got a glimpse of retirement, living on a fixed income, not even sure if they can pay their mortgage in 3 months because they have no idea. They have no control of that future. And so you have a lot of people out there right now, and part of my trainings with people is real simple. If you have any fears, you just need to push that all aside. Because the people out there today need you. Somebody said to me, well, you know, I feel like we're preying on people. Yes, we are, in a really good way. Because what we do is we help people with their health and wellness. We help people with their finances and their time and financial freedom. Go back to that story for me at the beginning. Doesn't matter how it was done. I thank God every day, a quarter of a century later, that he did that. He's the one who introduced me to a better way. You are the one introducing people right now to a better way. And if you look at the work from home graphs and algorithms on Google, now that's going like this. That's the race car engine you want to be a part of. People looking to work from home. There's so many people out there right now. Brittany, it's amazing. They right now, 6 months ago, they told you you were in a pyramid scheme, right? 6 weeks ago, they were like ghosting you. Okay. Now people are listening more than ever before. So another part of my messaging tonight, and I just ramble. If you have any questions or anything you'd like me to talk about, because I'm just kind of rambling right now, but this is important for me because I've been thinking about it every day. You know, the average person today, I mean, without a crisis, they work 51 weeks a year to go on a 1 week vacation. They work so hard to go on that 1 week vacation. And right now, people aren't even sure if they can go back to work. So when you think about time and financial freedom, it's not about how much money people make. It's about how they make their money. And that's something you need to teach people. Right now, they're open to listening. Because there's a lot of us, and I just said this today, Brandy and I were sitting on the porch with Anya, and we were talking to somebody, and it just came out of me. I said, you know, sometimes I just got to be grateful and thankful that we have this amazing home business. And we're not worried about our income. Now, do I want it to grow? And am I trying to work harder? Yes. But I'm not worried about the income coming in this month. In fact, the last 2 months, it's been business is growing. And I almost felt guilty about it. But I can't feel guilty enough. You know, you don't want to feel so guilty sometimes that you don't tell the world about what we do, because that's being selfish. So it was really important when I said that, because it's true. And this is what people want. It's not about how much money they make. It's about how they make their money. And there's people right now that work really hard for, you know, 6-figure income in corporate America, but they have no life. They don't get to see their kids. They don't get control of anything. They would rather take a 50% pay cut so they could stay at home and at least control their time. That's a fact. Have that conversation with people. So, you know, jumping into that, Brittany, I just wanted to share that because I think it's an emotional time for a lot of people. Of course, we're in a crisis, but remember, when people are open, okay, to take a look at what we do, that's what we have to do more of. We have to get more people to take a look at what we do. And right now they're just more open than ever before. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And I loved how you shared, like, you, like, even if you do feel guilty, like you know, have things so much better right now than a lot of people, like you still, like, that's the wake up call to share it, you know, now more than ever. I was listening to something on YouTube today, and it was Pastor Michael Todd out of Tulsa. And he used this analogy that I thought was really good that applies to our business so well. But he said, like, if you had a cure for Corona and you were just sitting on it, and you didn't tell a soul and you didn't share it with anybody, like, people would think you were a terrorist. Like, you would be considered so, like, selfish and crazy. Like, everybody would hate you that you didn't share it. And he said, yet so many of us have solutions to help people around us, and we just keep it to ourselves because of one reason or another. Like, we're worried what they're going to think if we share it with them or whatever. And I thought that was just such a good analogy that everyone should be able to understand right now. Like, you have something that everyone around you needs now more than ever. Why would you not share it? And so I just love so much you hitting on that, because I think that that's something that, you know, most people understand, but then there's still some people that maybe they do feel, like you said, like, oh, what I don't want someone to feel like I'm pressuring them or preying on them. But now more than ever, obviously, people need to be taking care of their health. And I think America, for the first time in a long time, is waking up to that reality. So I love that you hit on that. What would just be, I know that you've, like, you know, having been in the industry for 25 years, you've obviously, this is not your first, you know, economic collapse that you've been in the industry, you know, through. Obviously, you were in the industry through 2008, 2009. Yeah. And I know that, you know, you and I both heard Pam talk about that at her house a couple weeks ago. But what can you share? Just like, what was your experience through that time, and things that you did and ways that you were able to, you know, reach people that you feel like are, you know, just as relevant and duplicatable now?
Well, I think one of the things that I did more of, and I do this consistently pretty much daily on my business, but I do more of it in times where I think it's just more relevant. And that's the personal phone call. You know, I love technology, believe me, I do. I love everything we can do with text and voice text and, you know, Zooms. I mean, you know, everything we can do on social media, but there is nothing more powerful than a personal phone call. And the reason why, we don't do enough of it. I don't care who we are. We just don't. But when people are in times of crisis, when you make that effort to get on the phone with them, and if I were to call you, Brittany, and we're good friends, and say it's 2008, 2009, because I did recruit a lot of people in those years, because I had friends in the real estate world that were crashing. And, you know, it's like, Brittany, I've got something really important I want to talk to you about. And it's the way you say it. I always tell people in this business, your energy, and it really starts, if you don't mind, I'll just share this, with your belief. You see, your belief, your philosophy of belief in making money, in building this business, literally transfers into your energy as you talk to somebody. So that's why I always focus on the personal growth, because if you got your mind right, your business is going to be on fire. So making that personal phone call is so critical. And I think it's something we do when you look at recruiting in general. Okay. And when you start to develop relationships with people and you pick up that phone and I say, look, Brittany, I want to tell you something really important I've got to share with you from my heart. You know, it's that personal connection. And so I do a lot of that. I've never changed that. That's something I think when people, you know, they know I'm a pretty quiet guy and I'm not real loud on social media, but I'm like that dude that never gets off my phone. And I follow up until it could be years. Some of my best producers in my entire career, you know, they didn't sprout. The seed, I worked for months, some of them years. And when they sprouted, it was amazing. But that's because I never stopped that process. But I always start with the personal phone call. And during times of crisis, they need a little hug. They need a little, they need a little push. It's kind of like tough love sometimes, and you can't be afraid to share that with people as well. So a personal phone call, I think it's like I always tell people, when in doubt, personal phone calls and in-home meetings. Those are two things that we always master because they never fail. They've been doing in-home meetings and, the personal one-on-one type atmosphere for forever in this industry.
I love so much that you hit on how you just continue to follow up. You're patient if your seed takes a while to sprout. You said something probably about, 5 to 7 minutes ago, but about, you'll see people that have been ghosting you forever signing. And I know that is what our team's experiencing. The last probably 4 or 5 distributors I've signed, I've been following up with since early 2018. And I mean, here we are 2020, ghosted me through 29 follow-ups, and then now they're ready. And so I just love that you hit on that, because I think it's so important that everyone on here hears this is not just something that works for 1 or 2 people. You're here, you've heard this from so many, top leaders, and then hearing from Mike, who's been in the industry so long, you've got to stay on people, you've got to follow up. I just think that is just probably one of the most valuable things that you said, because now more than ever is the time to stay on people, not to, just let the ball drop. And then the last thing that I would just love to hear you talk on, we talk a lot on the team about just how you work a lot differently when you know your hour is coming. And I feel like now more than ever, everything that you've shared, we are seeing that these are the days that we'll never get back. These are the days that we have so much opportunity on our hands. But what would you say to maybe someone on here who they get that, they're inspired by that, but there's just something, within them that doesn't believe? I know you talked about belief just a little bit ago, but what would be kind of your final piece of advice to maybe someone who just is still having a hard time seeing just what all is really on the table for them right now?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question in general, because I've learned that no matter what level you hit, right? They always say there's a new devil, right? So at every level there's a devil, and you look at, just from where you are right now. I always tell people, if you start where you are right now, okay, and that's really just being brutally honest. It's like the old quote, all of our problems and all of our solutions are in the mirror. So we start with us, and we know exactly where we are right now. Good, bad, or in between, doesn't matter. Just the fact that you identified where you are, you know what you need to work on, whether it's for you personally. I'll give you an example. I had somebody call me and they said, they went out and they talked to 3 or 4 people, and they all said no, and they were devastated. And I'm like, hold on a second, okay? And I always go back to the basics on that, because it's so true. If you would have talked to 10 people, those first 3, 4 no's would mean nothing to you, because you had 6 more to talk to. And so again, this goes back to what we just said. Your mindset, taking inventory of you personally, it's all about, understanding that from the beginning, because that gives you the energy and the endurance to follow through. And so I look at the numbers game that we all play. One of my favorite quotes, and if, especially for brand new people. So when somebody's new in this business, when they're just starting off, it might be their first 6 months, their first couple of years in the industry, but never forget that what you lack in skill, you make up for in the numbers. And Jim Rohn taught me that. I remember the first time he shared that, and I didn't hear it. I had to experience it first. So what you lack in your skill, in your knowledge right now, just starting off, or no matter where you are, you're going to make up for in the numbers. So if you're talking to 3 to 4 or 5 people a day, my advice for you is to double or triple that. Just for the pure law of average, okay? It's going to increase everything you're doing. So you want that increase. So I think it's important, once you identify where you are, you're able to say, I need to work on some of these areas. You've got people to lean on to help you with that. And then look at your own prospecting, look at your own recruiting numbers right now. I always tell people, just look at your last 30 days. How many people have you recruited? How many new customers have you signed up? And there's an answer, and then there's an emotion that you feel on it. It's either good or bad, but it always goes back to how many you actually talked to, or how many you did something with on social media. Okay. So that sounds elementary. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, but that's what keeps me sane. People always ask me, how do you endure all this in the industry of recruiting? Doesn't it ever get old? And I'm like, no, I love this. See, I get excited for no's. To me, that means on. See, when people tell you no, you never not look forward to a no, because no means on. When you tell somebody no, you feel guilty naturally. So if somebody tells me no, I already know they feel guilty, and I'm going to take advantage of that guilt. Very simple. I'm going to always ask for referrals, right? I mean, Brittany says, no, Mike, I don't want to join this business. No, 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 no. And I'm like, okay, I might drop down to create a customer, hopefully. If she doesn't want to try product, then maybe I'll try for the samples. But if she's no, no, no all the way, I'll say, look, Brittany, would you help me out? Do you know anybody in sales? Do you know anybody in real estate? You know any entrepreneurs? You know anybody in network marketing? See, I turn that no into an on. And now I start working referrals, and I will dig hard for those referrals. I got nothing to lose. She's already said no. But again, this goes back to those, this is a little baby step, but for me, it's important is you drill down and you drill deep like that. And with that relationship, you'd be amazed what happens. You see, I might get a couple referrals out of Brittany, and eventually those couple, somebody joins. And so what I teach people is like, look, if you're going to burn the house down, you got to start the fire in the basement, not on the roof. So by the time what was once a no, which for some people is tragedy, I take that no and I make it an on, I work those referrals and I find a spark somewhere. And now by the time I get back to Brittany, I'm like, wow. And she might even know that person. You know how powerful it is. And how many people I've called back in my life, Brittany, and said, hey, by the way, I can't thank you enough for that referral. In fact, she introduced me to Tom, and Tom joined. He's like signing people up, and listen, I've got this 3-day holding tank, so you got to make a decision here. And again, I try to look at things like that with the laws of averages, and then dealing with no's or objections. And so most of that means nothing. And the reason I say that is because that's just all little parts of doing business. And I don't let those things bother me, because I do know this. If you talk to enough people every day, every week, every month, it's just a matter of time when this is all going to come together for you, whatever those goals are for you. But the one thing I've learned, Brittany, is that you can't really control that time frame. You can speed it up by being more active and being busier and working on your numbers. But your story is your story, and you got to be proud of it. So that's why I always tell people, like, don't compare your story to someone else. You'll meet somebody who does something in 6 months, and you're like, how did they do that? The question is not how did they do that? The question is, how do I go recruit somebody who does that? So it's all how you see things. And so for me, when I look at, there's no comparison to anybody. I get inspired by those stories, because what it tells me is that, you know what, there's someone out there that can do that in 3 months. They might be able to do that in 6 months, and I have the ability to find them. It's like fun, right? It's like a scavenger hunt for fortunes. So, again, it goes, the best answer I can give you, Brittany, for everybody on this call is that we all know what we want. We all know what we need. But I think when you look at the very basics of what we do, the personal growth and the work of the numbers, and in turning those experiences into positive ones, that's been, I would say it's probably one of my greatest secrets, because I just don't quit. There's nothing in this business that can put me off track. I've heard it all. I've seen it all. And when it's like when somebody tells me they want to quit, or they want to go somewhere else, I'm like, let me help you. I'll help you pack your bags. We're not in the business of forcing people to stay here, or then you got to force them to get out of bed. What I love about this business is that I can go out and I can meet and find someone like you, Brittany, or, somebody on this call here today, your leadership, they're everywhere. And so I get excited about those little things. And I think, just to kind of leave everyone with this, when you look at all of the stories that you've already seen, it's really just a decision of when you're going to create your own story. I think for most people, it's just a simple decision. And no matter what the path looks like, you're going to persevere, because you already know what you want, you know what you need, and your reasons, your whys, and your passions through personal growth become strong enough. Nothing can stop you. If that makes sense. It's a long answer, but that's how I am sometimes.
No, I love that so much. That is seriously so good. I put that in the chat. If you have to force someone to stay, you'll have to force them to get out of bed. I thought that was so good. I've always told people, if you have to beg someone to join, you'll have to beg them to work. And I've never heard it on the flip side like that. So I think that is so, so good. What would be just like your final piece of inspiration? What is something that you're telling your team constantly right now?
Well, I think the best thing I've told everybody since we left conference, okay, is, decision, which we've already talked about tonight. The two things that I've talked about quite a bit is believing okay, in the timing and the positioning of right now, because it's like a window. And it's every day it's closing. Like if you look at this next 20 years of It Works Global, more millionaires will be created. Mark my word. That's why I'm not missing this. Not going to miss the party. Right now it's the party before the party, but I'm not missing the big party. Okay. And that window, it is a sense of urgency. And without urgency, everything, you'll lose desire. So you've got to, what I think is a leader, and again, this is not selfish. This is not being selfish. With this window closing every day, your job is to create a sense of urgency, whether it's with the prospect, whether it's with your team. Because this timing and the positioning that we're in right now, in the middle of a global crisis, now everybody, it's kind of like when my brother did get cancer. I never even saw the word cancer in my life. I never had to. When my brother got cancer, every billboard a mile away, I could see the word cancer. If I was on the internet, I'd see the word cancer. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because I was dealing with it. I was living in that moment for the first time in my life, trying to save my brother's life. Okay, same thing right now. When you look at people, they're in a crisis. They're stuck at home. They don't even know, some of them, if they're going back to work, because the mainstream media won't tell us anything. They just confuse us. So people are aware, they're awake, right? And they're looking. So it's like the billboard is you. And that's what I tell people, that you got to realize that window. And right now it's just the beginning. But if you look at April and you look at May, okay, those 2 months, look at that as its own window. And I would max out your efforts as much as you can now. Because again, this is now you're getting into like, planting the seed, waiting for the harvest. Well, right now, this is a lot of seed planting, getting new people in, amazing customer deals from now until the 12th. That's a whole nother comma in your check. But you look at that right now, April and May, this is that time frame that you've got to do the most you can, because again, it's going to be like a momentum because of what's happening right now. And again, I know it's a crisis, but you have to remember, people are now forced to work from home. And that's what you've been pitching people for a long time. But now that it's a reality, Zooms, this form of communication, social distancing, this is going to be a way of life for a period of time. I don't think it's going to go away just in April or May. We don't know. So I just think that window is how I look at it, Brittany. It's just like, we got to, I think about it every day. And that's what wakes me up sometimes at 4:30. I mean, really, it's true, because I don't want to miss a beat. Like, I'm like, so hopefully that helps.
No, that's so good. I love just you putting it that way. Max out your efforts right now. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate you. I don't know if you even were looking at the comments, but everybody is just
no, I haven't yet.
By your story and just everything that you shared tonight. And I know that you have a large team that you're leading to victory right now. So we so appreciate you taking time out of your night to come and share with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And tell Brandy we said hi. We'll have to have her on next.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Thank you.